Wallace, you let him out of the time stop. We cannot have another fight. We are about to start. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Tavern of Tomes. My name is R.K. Fox. I am your tavern keeper, and I am joined today by my fellow storytellers, Rachel and Samuel Bowen. And together we're going to weave a world of myth and legend. The walls of my tavern are lined with leather-bound books filled with blank pages. Once a week here at the tavern, we open a tome at dusk and fill its pages with stories. The outside world is dark and scary. It has its beauties, but they're hard to see at night. So for the time being, let's leave this world and go adventure, shall we? Thank you for joining us. All of you who are subscribers to our regular tier, being a regular at the tavern comes with its perks, and you get to see the behind the scenes, the process of creation. And today we are going to be doing our session 0 with one of our teams for our prologue chapters to our first novel. So Sam and Rachel are here. We're going to be working through sort of getting them set up in the world. So first things first, just sort of introducing, because this is the first time that a lot of people are going to be hearing about where we're going. Our first novel is going to be taking place in a section of Orbitura called Lifaux, a French and Spanish-inspired area, at least culturally, heavy amounts of piracy, but it also has the influences of what's the word I want to use for this? Eldritch horror, arcanotech, alien magic sort of things. Think Lovecraft meets whatever my brain thinks Lovecraft should have been. And so this is going to be, I think, a very fun opportunity. So yes, so let's get into it. Our players are going to be, I should actually explain to you guys what we're going to be playing. All of our main novels here at Tavern of Tomes take place in the system of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. However, that doesn't mean that we won't modify the rules. And for our prologues, we use a sort of what I call a turn-based political intrigue structure. It's going to be the means by which we set up and develop the world. So this is a system that I developed, and Sam has played in it before. This is going to be new for Rachel, but this is, I think, going to be very exciting. So I'm going to kick off with just giving you guys sort of an overview of how the system works. We basically at the beginning of every single time we do a prologue. So for this prologue, we're only going to do it once. The two teams will roll initiative. You'll pick someone to represent from your team. You'll roll initiative. Initiative will not be rolled with dexterity, but it'll be rolled with intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, and that'll have impacts later on. Rounds will typically last 3 months worth of time. There will be 4 rounds in a year, and the last round will be 2 months long. Let's see. Each turn in combat has a 40-minute time limit per player, or in this case, per team. So you guys are going to be working as a team. You'll set up your characters in a region or section of the world that you guys find interesting, and we will have you guys working together, making decisions about the power plays that you want to make from your positions of influence. And they consist of basically just one-on-one time between the teams and the DM. And you'll have basically 2 timed sections within the 40-second or 40-minute section, and then what I call an untimed concealment phase. So the first section is 10 of the 40 minutes. Section 1 contains the discovery phase, the epistolary phase, and the rumor phase, and then the initiative phase. So that's where this what ability you rolled with will come into play. So these phases may be done in any order at the player's discretion, but must be performed in the allotted time. Players are encouraged to spend time in between your rounds. So basically, you're going to have a round, and then you're going to have an hour off, and then you're going to have a round, and then you're going to have an hour off, is the idea. You're encouraged to spend time between the rounds plotting with each other about what you want your next moves to be. If time runs out before the completion of a phase, that phase is considered lost and may have negative impacts on your reputation or your impact in the world. So I'm going to talk now through the discovery phase, epistolary phase, and rumor phase. Discovery phase consists of a wisdom, perception, or insight check in which the player has the opportunity to discover what other teams or players have done in the previous rounds. Because you guys might be going first, or because the other team might be going first. Whoever goes first, their first round won't gain that benefit, but I'll give them additional information to fill in. What is discovered is revealed by the DM according to the concealment phase rules. So at the end of each turn, there's a concealment phase where you hide what you did, should you so desire, and that will be what another team may discover in their discovery phase. Then there's the epistolary phase. Each player, so we're going to give you each one of these, you'll be allowed to write one letter to any one NPC, PC, if you discover other PCs in the world, or organization that you know the location of from the last round's discovery phase, or just from common knowledge. These letters may be accompanied by a check that I have you make, and may influence new rumors to rise or influence the social standing of a player character. And then there is the rumor phase. During the rumor phase, each player, again, each of you will get this once, is allowed to either successfully start a rumor. You can do this outside of this time, but during this time, I will give it to you guaranteed. You may have some hurdles to overcome in the other time. Or you can escalate a former rumor to a scandal. A scandal does not necessarily denote a negative thing. Rumors may be good as well as bad. Starting or escalating a rumor does not requires a check. Hold on, my notes don't make sense to me. Starting or escalating a rumor in this phase, yes, does not require a check in and of itself. In other phases, it would. You may choose to start these rumors openly or to do so subtly, in which case I'll have you roll charisma, persuasion, performance, or a charisma stealth check, respectively. So during these kinds of games, I will probably pull a lot more on a rule that is often forgotten in D&D, where every single ability check, every single skill doesn't necessarily have to be associated with the ability that follows it normally. So like stealth checks are normally dexterity checks. That's not a requirement. And so I may have you make charisma stealth checks, depending on how you want to present things. And then finally in section 1 is the initiative phase. And the initiative phase is a duplication of any one of discovery, epistolary, or rumor phases based on the modifier you used. So if you use intelligence, you get an additional epistolary phase. If you use wisdom, you get an additional discovery phase. If you use an additional discovery phase, the concealment DCs are reduced by 5. If you're investigating as the same thing that you investigated in your first discovery phase. And then the charisma roll grants you an additional rumor phase. Section 1 is not included in the final round. So in the last of these 4 rounds that you'll get, you will not get section 1 with all of these basically just free benefits. Then there's section 2, which is the bulk of what we're doing. It takes way less time to explain because there's way less going on in as far as like rules or structure goes. Section 2 is 30 minutes long, It's 20 minutes long in the final round. Section 2 is reserved for the individual actions a player or a team may wish to take in the 3 months before them. This may mean travel, rendezvous, political movement, more letter writing, rumor spreading, or discovering, and a whole host of other things. The bottom line is you have 30 minutes of real time and 3 months of in-game time. Use it wisely. And then we conclude with the concealment phase. This is outside of your allotted 40 minutes, so you can take some more time to make some decisions, make some calls. You guys together as a team will choose the 3 moments of your turn, of this sort of 40-minute time, that you consider to be the most important or the most important for you to hide. And then you will roll a dexterity or wisdom stealth check for each event chronologically. So basically, you'll tell me, okay, this letter that I sent, I really don't want anybody to know that I sent it, and I'll probably have you roll a dexterity or wisdom. I'll give you your choice usually, although sometimes it will require a dexterity stealth check. But with planning, usually there's the option for a wisdom stealth check. These 3 rolls are recorded by me and are used when another player happens to investigate those events specifically. So the other teams will not necessarily know which actions are you and which actions are the other NPCs in the world. I'm going to do my best to create colorful and intriguing and active NPCs that keep you masked behind a fog so that you don't necessarily look like you're the person that you are. One of the things that's dangerous is that in a world of NPCs, the player characters are usually bright and colorful. However, there are lots of bright and colorful people in the world, and it's my responsibility to make sure that you're not the only bright and colorful thing out there. And once those 3 rolls are made and I've written down those DCs, this concludes your turn. In total, 1 year of gameplay in a 2-player game, or rather a 2-team game, should take roughly 2 3-hour sessions. And so we'll do this basically over the period of, 8 weeks of prologue time. So, however, for us on the recording end, it will look a little different. So that is turn-based political intrigue. That's what you guys are looking at. That's what you are building characters for. So as you can see, there are a lot of details that we don't have in normal Dungeons & Dragons, but it makes for a very rich world-building experience, and that's what our prologue is for. Because the 8 weeks, the 8 episodes, 8 chapters that we're building here is going to set the stage for what the main characters of our novel are going to be entrenched in. One of the beauties of this is it also helps you guys get very, very familiar with the world before you jump in as your main characters. So you don't have the issues of me constantly going, oh, your player would know this, or your character would know this after it would have occurred to you and after a decision should have had already been concluded. You know, you guys will have a little bit more just in your heads to begin with. So that's what we're looking at. So my question is, let's start with, who do you want to be? There are a lot of different organizations and powerful people in this world. I want to invite you guys to now just tell me, who are you interested in being? And either of you can go at any time. Radio silence. Oh,
I have a kind of a clarifying question. I know that we had talked about a similar game before. Is there an objective for the teams? Are we trying to overthrow a government? Are we trying to...
Yes.
I kind of forgot what we talked about.
So here is sort of how this will work. Is you guys sort of get to use this as an opportunity to learn the world. You guys are lucky because you're actually the first group recording. Which means you get a little bit of priority about choosing where you end up. Now, you're not going to be at the top of any totem pole. You're going to be a couple steps down, which means that I get to give you orders from above, but you get to figure out why people are wanting to make those orders. So your directives won't necessarily come from you. You might be self-motivated in your own ways, but at least from wherever you fall within a chain of command, you'll be getting commands from the NPCs and you'll learn about their desires. And that's what will give you your directives. So you don't have a directive right now. That depends on where you want to be. So.
Yeah. I would sort of lean towards, well, so I pulled up the document.
Yes.
Of all the...
Yeah. So just for listeners at home, we're still setting up this world. I've done a lot of heavy lifting to try and get this space ready for our players to inhabit, but there's still going to be a lot of fleshing out going on. Right now, there are 3 major powers that our players know about. They are the Scion, which is a psionic, mental magic focused monarchy that exists on a landmass known as Domitia. For those of you who follow our Patreon, the maps will show up and you'll be able to actually see what we're talking about. And if you're watching this, you're following the Patreon. And we thank you for subscribing as a regular. Then there's the Throne Guard Concord, a group of 5 magical tech companies which control the landmass known as Envol. They are currently led by Helix Corps. Oh, and I should mention the Scion, the good Scion, Verlan Charbon III, rules over the Scionarchy. Then there's the Throne Guard Concord, currently led by Helix Corps. They are a corporate technocracy controlling Envol. And then the last one is the Quadratica, which does not have a leading political figure. It is a group of 4 city-states that bind together whenever their lands are threatened. So for our listeners, that is sort of the world that we're working in right now. And then take all of the high fantasy things that you love and blend it with Eldritch Horror. So.
Yeah.
Continue, Sam.
So it was more of a question of, is there any sort of, out of the 3, like, are you leaning towards any of, specifically Rachel, like, are you leaning towards any of the 3 that you'd be more interested in sort of messing around with? Because I'm flexible.
Okay. I kind of like the idea of either messing with, seeing what happened. You said if the Quadratica kind of disperses until people try and mess with their lands, and so...
Yeah, so the idea is...
The
Quadratica does not have a primary leader. Quadratica does not have a unified government. They have an agreed, basically, treaty between the 4 city-states that they will join together if somebody tries to threaten the land that they live on, if anybody tries to make a move against the land that they live on. But otherwise considering, they are a peaceful group of people who want to be left alone. I can even read for you. So this is their statement from the relationships with local governments section on the sheet that I sent to you guys. The Quadratica stands neutral to the world around them, including other members of the Quadratica, until they must stand together to be left alone. They are the most dangerous form of pacifist. They see the Throne Guard Concord as a foolish glorification of technology, and the Scion is a foolish glorification of a family whose magical practices are not even innate. They are not beyond recognizing the pride which is inherent in their position. However, they are not beyond recognizing the pride which is inherent in their positions, however, and so they do their best not to see themselves as above the other nations around them. Instead, they choose to trade and interact with the other governments to, again, seek the overall betterment of humanoid kind. So, that's sort of your brief overview of the Quadratica.
So, what I heard is they need a leader.
That's kind of what I heard too.
We're on the same page already. It's gonna go great.
Interesting. So, what do you want to be? Because they don't have a section, they don't see a need for a leader, which means either you are coming in from the outside with a mind of conquest, or you are starting inside with the mind of insurgents.
I mean, would we already be on the inside though? If we were going to try and
Well, so this is the choice. Is you could say, well, we would like to be from the Cyanarchy, and we would like to try and be like a small sect of his military that's trying to take the Quadratica. Now, I will say one of the things that is historically known about the Quadratica is they had a unified government, the nation of Perai, the kingdom of Denwell, came against them very early on when they were weaker, and they still fought off the people coming towards them. So they've been generically left alone because of their seeming mysterious ability to fight off incoming threats. So this is where it becomes a question of, do you want to come from the outside and try and lead, or do you want to come from the inside and try and declare the need for a leader?
So I have a nerdier question that kind of may influence
Okay.
some things. Hypothetically speaking, where in the timeline, as opposed to any previous games that I might have been in, are we at?
So Sam, the last game chronologically that you played in was in 872 AC. The year is 899. We're starting at the beginning of 899.
Okay.
So this is quite some time after the ages of Imson Ember and well, I don't know what's up
Would
with.
this be after? Would this be after Consequence?
Oh, by a long shot.
So would there happen to be a guild, perhaps that's implemented into the Quadratica? Perhaps.
Let me
kind
pull.
of-
Let me pull up Consequences. Or do you just want to play Consequence again? Is that what this is?
No. More so,
Hold on.
this guild would
So
sort
you're
of follow along the lines of the Quadratica's sort of model.
you're looking for the Freeman's
of.
Guild. You want me to bring
Yeah.
the Freeman's Guild into this? Oh
Yeah.
my word.
I feel like that would be a great place to start.
Well,
Because they may be known for sort of taking over places.
here's the thing. We never resolved that story. So, I'm gonna say that because of how far in the past that happened, we're just too far away. So, like, the Freeman's Guild came to rise in the year 753, I think. I think that's
Oh wow! Okay.
I think that's when you got it off the ground. The Freeman's Guild is the Freeman's Guild at this point, I think, is more a legend like the Freemasons. You know, you're also from a different part. Like the Freeman's Guild is from a different part of the world. Like that's up in Ferda.
Would there be any sort of traces that would?
I think if you
spur on
want to,
other
I think if you want to say that there are traces of the Freeman's Guild, for sure. I think you're not gonna be like. I think if
It
you,
wouldn't be in like yeah.
I was gonna say if you want to pull like a National Treasures Nicolas Cage version of the Freemasons, where it's like it never died and it's still, like if you would like to do that, I think that'd be very entertaining.
Sort of they've become less of a guild and more of sort of an underground society.
Yeah, I think that's a completely viable direction for you to take this. If that's something you'd be interested in, I think it'd be really, really interesting.
I would be interested.
Okay.
I very much also want to leave it up to Rachel to like influence things and
So, but this is also the question
Do
of,
you have a different starting point? Like,
well, I also want to ask the question, though, like the sort of, I think the premise of where you guys need to start is, are you starting inside the Quadratica or are you starting outside the Quadratica? Like that's our big question right now. Because I think that will determine how everything else plays out and sort of where you guys come from when we're figuring out how the prologue works and what that narrative is for you guys and for your characters is, where's your influence coming from? Are you coming from does your influence come from control of something inside the Quadratica? Like, are you insurgents? Are you looking to rebel? Are you looking to, drive the nation in a direction based on, the need for a leader? Or are you coming in from the outside, which has historically been an unwise idea, and are you trying to very subtly try and pull this off as a coup using people from the inside while working from the outside? Or some third or fourth alternative?
I was leaning more towards coming from the inside. Yeah, because I think that will also lend itself a little bit more to sneaking.
Okay, sounds good. So you want to be coming from the inside. So the question then becomes, what do you want to be connected to? Where do you want to be? What sort of people do you want to be? Do you want to be militia leaders? Do you want to be local political figures? You have a year to do kind of what you two have sort of agreed you want to do, which is set up a unified government on the one section that hasn't had a unified government. So the question
that does seem to be our goal.
Yes, yeah, that is.
Yes.
That's your expressed goal at this moment. So the question is, where do you want to be and what forces do you want to use to do that? We could even also start by saying, what races and what classes do you want to play? I'm happy to sort of tool this and workshop this from any direction.
I definitely have ideas of where I've been thinking of where my character would kind of along the lines of.
I will also say, you guys don't have to be working in the same location. Each of you could be of an equal rank or similar rank in two different city-states and have informants from the other city-states and be staging a collective coup to form a government against the main leaders. There are a number of different directions.
So, for the sort of, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. I very much would like to have a wizard character.
Okay.
And so, it sort of is sort of the arcane magic of things. Is that sort of seen as sort of academic? Is that sort of scientific? Is it more?
So.
Is it more tied to power? Is it more tied to study? Is there both sides?
So here's what I'll say. In the region of Lifo, generically, the Throne Guard Concord is the head of wizardly, arcane tech and arcane study. In the year 899, magic has gotten sort of the point where, in the older days, wizardry was a very academic practice, and sorcerers and bards and warlocks were sort of the arcane powerhouses. We're now in a space and a time where arcane technology and sort of the mathematics of magic has sort of risen to the surface. And so, especially in regions like the Throne Guard Concord, arcane magic is a mathematical, scientific practice just as much as any other normal science would be. You think of the major fields of science being botany, biology, chemistry, all these different things. And magic is just one of those fields, with, however, much exponential success. And so, that's sort of where you're looking at. And so that's a common understanding kind of throughout the entire world. One of the things that I will say is that if you guys are coming from inside the Quadratica, one of the things that has helped the Quadratica do successfully what they intend to do and what they've been seeking to do is they have basically completely and totally honed the practice of geomancy. So they're close enough regionally to Ferda that they have small pockets of influence and they can utilize geomancy. Now, geomancy is a barbarian's practice. It is not an arcane practice. That is a primal thing. And so that art and that practice, especially coming from the inside, is one of their major defenses and why they have been so successful. They are a weird blend of primal and primal divine and this peace-seeking isolationist hermit style practice is their way of seeing that through. And so coming with an arcane perspective and being arcane people of influence, not going to be super unusual, but also going to have its drawbacks, but also its upsides, because you may be one of the few every time you walk into a room who knows anything about arcane magic and the science that it is.
Can I ask, so when you say geomancy, is that a magic practice?
So that is
because like my mind goes to like necromancy and stuff like that, which is like still within the magical world.
Yes, exactly. So geomancy is a barbarian practice of rock magic. Basically, it is stone and mineral magic. Think earthbenders. Think, like even the spell Chromatic Orb in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition requires a 50 gold piece diamond, which you use. Chromatic Orb is a geomancy spell that barbarians can get access to if you're a barbarian of the path of geomancy. And that is sort of the thing. They've honed this magic, like primal magic meets rage meets battle and fused them.
Cool.
So, from my side of things,
Yes.
I think my character will sort of be. I'm sort of framing him as sort of not necessarily a like arcane like scientist, but more of a like arcane purist, of where he's seen how these sort of tech companies have sort of made the arcane mundane.
Okay.
He more or less wants to put the fear of magic back into society.
Okay, interesting.
And seeing how the Quadratica would use sort of more primal, sort of more that sort of magic that's a little bit less understood, a little less a little bit less studied probably. He sort of wants to take that and bring that back to sort of arcane magic. And so he's sort of working with, I imagine, sort of offshoot of this sort of Freeman skilled secret society who they've sort of kind of gathered together as sort of this like we think magic be something that's feared, and we want to bring that back, sort of conspiratorial way to sort of take away sort of the mundaneness of magic, and make it something that's less known, less studied, and more keep it to the people who actually know what the power of magic is.
Interesting. So you're
taking it away from the hands of people.
Gotcha. So your goal is basically just to say you're looking at the Throne Guard Concord as like your biggest enemy, really.
Mm-hmm. and seeing the Quadratica as sort of the biggest ally.
Okay.
They just want to be left alone, but they have an innate understanding of how magic should be, of something that's not quite understood and should only really be used in certain situations.
Interesting. Okay. This is very interesting. I like this. Rachel, what are you thinking?
I'm kind of torn between I could see potentially playing almost like a fighter that maybe is not big in magic, but is kind of like, yeah, I think that there needs to be a reverence to it. So kind of like aligning with Sam in that way, or to play on more of the ridiculous end, is there a version of like a social media influencer that could exist in this world that just wants to like continue to grow in power, and so is willing to just kind of be the face of whatever, but really as long as they're getting paid and getting the what do you call it, the sponsorships, doesn't really care, kind of just selling her soul for whatever.
Okay,
like,
so you're looking at like playing a social media influencer who's like, I don't care if you're really against whatever, like, so this is actually, it's really interesting. So one of the organizations within the Throne Guard Concord is called Myth Unending. And they're called Myth Unending because they have used Arcanotech to basically start a magical entertainment industry. And so think magic Netflix, magic social media. And so I think there's absolutely potential for some
I want to
sort
be
of...
the Kim K of this world, like basically.
Okay, that's amazing. If you want to go with this character, there's absolutely a way to do that. I love the idea of being a social media. Now, what's very interesting is if you are not inside the Throne Guard Concord, your influence will be smaller. So, are you guys going to be both in the Quadratica, or Rachel, are you going to be in the Throne Guard Concord taking sponsorships from him in the Quadratica, speaking to the Throne Guard Concord, trying to influence them away from their practices?
Oh.
Or
that could be interesting.
like that's a direction you could take. The other direction you could take is be inside the Quadratica, trying to sell to the masses this idea that Sam's character has of arcane purism, of magical purity. Selling to the masses you'd probably just do without the technology of Myth Unending, unless you did something where, like you said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to ship in a bunch of Myth Unending's magic tech to make it mundane for long enough to get the influence we need, and then to basically destroy the work of Myth Unending and the work of the Throne Guard Concord. Like, though, that's absolutely a direction you could take as well. Or, as always, a third or fourth thing I haven't thought of.
Yeah. I kind of was thinking almost like a maybe like lived in the Throne Guard is a part of the Myth Unending, but is going to the Quadratica for like a year in the life of the Quadratica, but it's like blasting out to so kind of like subtly trying to influence maybe the Throne Guard of the import. Like, look at, they're just so in touch with like the beauty of magic, and it's just like less thinking and more doing and feeling. And what are we doing in the Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like the people that like go away, like study abroad for a year, but they're a social media influencer.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Like, my apartment that I pay $900 for. Look at how amazing it is. So quaint and it's so beautiful, and
I can feel
so
that.
it's like having kind of that. Is it just cringing everywhere?
My heart hurts. It's so sad, but it's because it's so real. It's like all the white girl influencers who like go to Africa on a missions trip and like their life is changed, and then they come home and nothing changes.
Yes.
They're like just fascinated with.
Yeah, so it's like maybe bringing some of the technology over and using it to kind of broadcast out, but also at the same time having this layer of trying to unite all of the quadratica of like, this is so important and really the world needs to get on board, and I've got this following, but what we really need is for people to really unite in the quadratica and help others to really just see how important this is. And you know, I don't know, I need to tease that out some more, but I just think playing a version of like magical version of a social media influencer would be the absolute worst in the best way possible.
Yes, no, absolutely. I love that so much. It's so terrible, but it's so beautiful in a horrible way. Oh, yes. That's so great. I want it so bad. You should absolutely do that. Okay. So, Rachel, you don't have to do this, but I've been sitting for so long on the idea of a warlock who utilizes the, like, their like patron contract is just the social contract that we all sort of agree to as a concept in society. I think it would be hilarious to do something like that. You don't have to use it,
that's,
but I think it's so
like
funny.
Was playing with an idea of doing a warlock for this character anyways. I may change the race. Just to make, because I was thinking about for this being the, how do you say it? AV?
OV. The OV.
OV, an OV warlock, but I wonder if maybe I'll pick a different race. But
if I may propose something, because I think there's a really funny way that you could spin that, because the OV are like a tragic race that are stuck in symbiosis with a basically a sea creature that can't survive without a host, and the OV are created by basically sailors who fell overboard and can't survive without the parasite, the symbiotic being. There is absolutely a direction where I think you could spin it as like, you never meant to become an influencer, but you were in a terrible like accident at sea, and then you had like your like sob story on the like magic news, and your recovery turned you into an influencer.
An influencer.
And now it's like
signed a social contract with a god.
Signed a social contract, and now you're an influencer running a page like called My Symbiotic Life or something like that.
No.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Okay, here's a question. Okay. With the OV, is it almost like, because it's kind of the symbiotic relationship, is there room for like the person, the host body kind of having one personality, and then like the symbiotic creature having a slightly
yes. Yeah, no, that's a real thing. So there's I'll pull up the OV racial traits right now. But one of the things I believe I gave them was sort of a dual mind function.
Yes, binary minds.
Yes, yeah, binary minds. You have two minds. Because you are functionally two creatures.
I love that.
So, yeah, there's absolutely, like, I think it would also be interesting, like, if you wanted to play with, like, the person that you have your social contract with is, like, it's both society, but then also you're like, you have a social contract with the parasite who needs you to behave within the social contract so that you're not like, so that you survive. And, you know, like, that would be very interesting. Oh, I love this so much. That's such an entertaining character.
Yes. And really the goal is just to like be able to influence, like, the ability to bring a country together. So I think of like the influencers that, you know, like use their, can I sway this group of people to vote a certain way or something like that. So it's almost like that's like the ultimate goal of whoever decides has the ultimate contract of like to be at that level of influence where it's like you could say, everyone, we're going to take the Quadratica and all be under one leadership, like to have that power.
That's so fun. I love it so much. Oh, this is so exciting. This is going to be so much fun. Oh, man. Okay. So we've got the social media influencer who is potentially living her My Symbiotic Life dream.
Yes.
And then we have the Arcane Purist Wizard, who is a member of some artifact of the Freemasons or the Freemen's Guild. Now it's too close to Freemason. Maybe it has a new name after 100 years. We don't know. The Freemen's Guild, who is looking to bind the Quadratica together under one leadership and probably some sort of sponsorship relationship where this wizard is going to be using the influencer's influence to drive the Quadratica and all of its citizens to call for unified leadership within the Quadratica. Does that sound?
I love this.
Okay. That's phenomenal. I am so excited. This is enough of a session 0 for me. I'll send you guys some more details. Are there any other questions you'd like to ask? You know, we still have some time, but I need to do some ruminating on these ideas. Obviously, you guys will want some time to lock in your characters and lock in details. We'll use the same rules for character building that we're going to use for the main campaign, minus 7th ability scores. So we'll just do the normal 6. For those of you who are regulars at the tavern, you get a lovely little pre-introduction to the fact that we're going to be using 7th ability scores in the main campaign. So we'll just use the main 6. We'll use Dungeon Dude's adjusted point or standard array, which is 17, 15, 13,
12, 10, 8.
12, 10, 8, yep.
Oh.
All of that is in the character building stuff that I sent you guys earlier. You'll be building to level 8. We'll work out a little bit more if anybody has authority over you and what that looks like and who those people are, because you guys will be within the Quadratica. I'll give you a little bit of a download on leadership and all that. Rachel, your character probably won't have as much because I'm imagining if she's doing her year abroad, she's probably just started. I also, because it's the year 899 and everybody's about to really like delve into figuring out what 10th level magic looks like, maybe she's over abroad to do like a study, like just a little study on what it looks like for non-arcane mages to prep for the click of the arcane clock, you know, the tick of the arcane clock. And maybe she's figuring out, oh, it's so different for them. They've got something that we don't, and we need it, and they need to share it with the world. You know, like, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but that's a big, you know, event that this entire year is going to be preparing for. So, yeah, this will be very interesting. Any other questions that you guys have for me before we conclude tonight's, not really story, but the foundation thereof?
I don't have any questions at this time. No.
That is fine. That is fine.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, in that case, I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you for being a regular at the Tavern of Tomes. We invite you to come back next week. I have a whole outro, and I've completely forgotten to pull it up. Look at this. First recording, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, where is it? I wrote it, and it was super good. Yes. Thank you all for joining us. You're always welcome at the tavern. And come back next week, because this story is not over yet. We love you all. Good night.